Today, we're going to talk through yet another Whatnot breaker scam, but this time one that looks like it has had a positive outcome. And it's a positive outcome that I think you can all learn from as customers, as users of Whatnot in the future. I want to show you a few things, get your thoughts on the situation, and then we can chat through it down in the comments below as always. Now, this is in relation to a specific breaker via Pokemon boxes on Whatnot. Cage Lawyer brought this to my attention 5 or 6 days ago, and these individuals were busting the Korean version of Evolving Skies. And within Evolving Skies is a very specific card that people primarily want to chase, and it is this Umbreon VMAX full art card. And it sells around $3,000 to $4,000 in the English version, especially in a PSA 10 like this. But it seems to be a card that Pokemon collectors are obsessed with because it looks quite nice and it is a bit hard to chase. So even though this is the Korean version, people still place a high value on this card. It still generates, upwards of $1,000 if I remember correctly. But what this breaker does, as you can see here, he essentially goes through, finds that there's a VMAX in there. Given that the image of the card is very distinct, this is how we know he did a bit of a dodgy here, because again, it's a bit hard to try and imply that's a different card. He's very clearly showing a heck of a lot of the card on camera, but what he does here is a big no-no, as we do know with regards to box breakers. He sets it off camera. Then he proceeds to open the next pack and then do some dodgy things without any hands on camera towards the end. Now, I'll let that play while I keep talking. This is a pretty interesting one because it did get a lot of attention. Cage raised it, which is really good on him because we need more people that have a platform like him to call this out. But essentially what has happened since then is that this breaker was suspended for 7 days initially by Whatnot. And then upon further backlash from the community, Whatnot decided to ban him altogether. And there's a few points there that I want to call out, firstly as a negative towards Whatnot, but then also a positive. So just quickly here, he's going to bring the cards back into frame in a second, and you're going to see that he swapped the card out for a very different looking card. It is still an EV related card, but it's very clearly not the same card. I believe it's a Vaporeon, if I remember correctly, or a Leafeon, sorry. It's very clear to see that it's a different card, right? And I also want to mention that this was brought to Cage's attention via this individual on Twitter, Bismack, who Card Porn did also mention in their post today, which is about 7 days late, but it is what it is with their account. The thing I want to call out here with regards to Whatnot is their first approach was to only ban this individual for 7 days. And in my opinion, that's pretty poor form. Like, firstly, it's okay, it's good that they've tried to do something, but that video that you just watched basically speaks for itself, right? You can clearly see there's one card on camera, takes it off, does some hanky-panky, brings it back. It's very clearly a different card. Them only doing a 7-day ban for that kind of thing is not good enough, right? We need to be holding, a much more stringent, ruling on this sort of stuff, right? We need to be much harsher, right? You almost need a one strike and you're out kind of thing, in my opinion. And the reason being, fraud is considered fraud. Okay, I talk about, the fact that I work at external audit all the time. I feel like I beat a dead horse. And one of the things we sort of get asked sometimes is, okay, you find that somebody's misappropriated $1 or $2, i.e. they've stolen a few dollars. What's the big deal? It doesn't really matter that it's only a few dollars, because like I just said, fraud is fraud. If you've got somebody that's sort of committing this kind of thing, committing fraud, doing these bad things, that means there's a gap within your process, right? That means, you as a business, you as a customer are exposed in some capacity. So you need to get rid of that, as soon as you see it, and you need to treat it very, very harshly. So when Whatnot see that and either drag their feet like they have in the past or only give a 7-day ban, who is that really teaching in this instance? Who is that really, hurting? The customer themselves have already lost out on a $5,000 to $1,000 card, maybe even a $1,500 card, depending on the condition. But the seller only misses out on selling things for 1 week, and then they can come back and do it all over again. That's not okay, in my opinion, and it should be treated how they got to in the end, and that was to ban this, seller completely. They're now banned from the platform and can no longer access it under their registered name or their personal details, which I think, is a really good outcome and is something that we should be seeing more of in the future. They need to take a one strike and you're out kind of rule with this kind of thing, because like I just touched on, fraud is fraud. And if you want a bit more insight into some of the commentary on this from me, I replied to this comment from Cage because basically he says it was bad because there was a bounty on that specific card. Like I think I touched on at the very start. If I didn't, essentially there was a bounty for $1,500 on this card, where basically if you hit it, you got $1,500 worth of cash and other product to sort of buy it from you. Okay. And my suggestion on this was, it doesn't really matter whether it had a bounty or not. This kind of behavior from Whatnot to allow, a soft ban in the first place of not doing enough about this kind of thing is the real problem here. And the fact that they're sort of letting people get away with it, again, is a big problem. fraud is fraud. And there's one thing I do flag here around, SOX reporting requirements, US regulatory reporting requirements. Now that might, go over some of your head. I am an auditor, I am an accountant, so this stuff is my bread and butter. But if you would have seen my weekly news video yesterday, I would have talked to this a little bit more, specifically around eBay's new live streaming platform where they talk about breaking, and they've now banned people selling break spots from their website. And I also mentioned Fanatics, right? Because if Fanatics go ahead and become public, like's been mentioned, and you can check out AOH Sports video from the other day, they're going to have so many more eyes on the breaking space, right? And when you've got, US regulatory requirements, okay, and they're very severe, they're very tedious, they make a process so much more cumbersome to complete because they want to make sure fraud doesn't happen, right? So if these companies get listed like eBay already is, and they want to start breaking, the eyes that are going to be on the breaking industry are going to be like nothing you've ever seen before, okay? And that means when companies make mistakes like this, if they're not taking hard stances like permabans, or they're not trying to squash this, or they're not trying to basically make sure that breakers do things the right way, i.e. have appropriate camera setups, have appropriate refund policies, multiple cameras, etc., cards never leaving the frame. If they're not enforcing those kinds of things, these regulators are going to come down so hard on these businesses, these scammers don't have any idea what they're in for, because they're going to get caught out really quickly, and they're not going to be allowed to drag their feet. And when I say they, I mean Whatnot and the likes of some of these other breaking platforms. They're not going to be allowed to drag their feet and not do anything about these scammers. I think, it's a good thing for us as customers because it means we're going to get better value. And if it does happen the way I think it will, I think it's going to be a really good thing for the industry. But right now, this initial response from Whatnot was piss poor in my opinion. It was good to see them ban in the end. But the thing I mentioned at the very start of this video on what you guys can do as customers of Whatnot is pretty clear now. If you speak up, Whatnot are not going to ignore this anymore. Because in the past, we wouldn't have even got a response from Whatnot with regards to a 1 week ban or anything like that. That stuff wasn't happening 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago as frequently as it's happening right now. So the point is, if you see it happen, call it out. Reach out to me on Instagram, reach out to Sports Card Radio, reach out to, somebody that you want to try and call this behavior out. Because now we're at a point where we've pushed this stuff so much that these businesses actually have to react. They actually have to do something, which is a really good thing for us as customers. And again, if you are a customer of Whatnot and you do see this sort of stuff, please call it out, because now we're actually seeing some tangible change. And this also goes to the people that sort of say my content is negative. I again raise this often, but this is the outcome from producing content like this, right? And it wasn't me in this instance who called this out. It was somebody like Cage Lawyer and then also Bismack on Twitter. These people are calling out, we're getting pressure, we're getting change happening. You can't say content like this is negative when we're getting positive outcomes out there for collectors, right? This person can no longer scam another customer. Who's to say how many they've scammed in the past? Maybe that was their first time. Who knows? Who cares? You're one and done with this kind of stuff, in my opinion. So, please share your thoughts on this down in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. I know, again, this is another scammer video, so I do apologize for putting it out there, but I think this is a really positive outcome for customers of Whatnot, and I'm really keen to get your thoughts on this, because this is an approach that they should be taking with everything moving forward, in my opinion. And if they're not, these regulators are going to, wipe the floor with them. So as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.